You, Tony.
Now we're going to be joined by another veteran of the diplomatic battles, Bill Richardson, who served that role both as a member of Congress, also a UN ambassador, and as the United States Secretary of Energy. He joins us now, and we are continuing to show you also pictures that have just been released very recently by the Pentagon of recovery efforts ongoing there. Secretary Richardson, you're maybe the only American of considerable stature who's sat down and tried to deal with members of the Taliban government, which now is, I hesitate to say ruling Afghanistan, but certainly is dominant within Afghanistan, has declared Osama bin Laden a hero, indeed the commander-in-chief of its military forces. Is it possible, in any scenario that you see, for the Taliban to turn Osama bin Laden over to the United States or anybody else in the West?
Tony, we shouldn't preclude that. I know when I went to meet with the Taliban and to try to get some prisoners out, which we did, and to try to get some peace talks going, which we did, that Pakistan had enormous leverage over them. I believe that the good signs out of Pakistan now are that they will help us with their airspace, they will help us with intelligence. We need Saudi cooperation, we need cooperation from the Swiss on money laundering, but we shouldn't preclude that despite these statements. Sitting down with them, Tony, the Taliban, they negotiate very differently, they think differently. Their country's been at war for 18 years. Where we met in Kabul, the city is already destroyed. So these guys figure we don't have much else to lose. We've been at war, so nothing is going to be different for us. Now, the people of Afghanistan desperately want peace. And as you said, the Taliban are not the only faction out there. There's a Northern Alliance whose leader, Massoud, was just assassinated 2 days ago, that have significant strength. So to make your answer briefer than I've done, we shouldn't preclude that the Taliban might turn them over, but the odds are against it.
You mentioned before that Pakistan has considerable influence over Taliban. One of, at least intelligence sources I talked to, say that the Taliban may not even be in charge of its own operations, that a number of radical elements have come in from Pakistan and elsewhere, from elsewhere in the Arab world, and that they may, in fact, be the operational sources responsible for what goes on with the Taliban now, and that the Taliban itself is weaker than it has been in some time. Is that your understanding?
Yes, and I think, Tony, this is why we shouldn't say the solution is just to bomb the Taliban. Terrorism, and Osama bin Laden's Islamic kind of terrorism, is spread through many nations. It's spread through many continents. They have a financial base. They have training camps. What was a little disappointing, Tony, was the Russians saying that they would be against some of the former Russian republics like Tajikistan, Central Asia, from being used as staging areas, using their airspace. That is disappointing, because if we're going to carry out some type of military action in Afghanistan, which I suspect may be inevitable, we're going to need those areas. Now, that doesn't mean that these Central Asian countries will 100% follow the Russians, but the Russians have a lot of leverage. That's been the one disappointing element in what appears to be a successful diplomatic effort by the Bush administration to get international support for our actions.
But one of the difficulties now is making sure that that pays off. We've been told that Pakistan is now going along with the requests that the administration has made. On the other hand, we do know that part of the government in Pakistan has been, in fact, helpful and supportive, or is controlling the Taliban, and is not necessarily hostile to Osama bin Laden. So this would require a change in policy, and also the risk to members of that government that they may themselves become targets of terrorist actions. So my question to you, it's a long question, can we trust Pakistan to follow through, or is it simply saying that it agrees to a series of conditions in order to save its neck with us, and will try to do nothing to save its neck with regard to fundamentalists or extremists within its own borders?
In the past, Tony, when I was in the administration and the cabinet, we could not always trust the Pakistani leadership. They'd say one thing on nuclear proliferation, they would do another. Now, again, this time we've really put it to them. What we need the most from them, Tony, the Pakistani leadership, yes, the airspace is important. Yes, staging rights are important. We need their unfettered access to their intelligence as to where Osama bin Laden is, that they contact their bad guys, their people that they think are linked to Osama bin Laden, and squeeze them so that we know that this network, where it is, where it operates. And I think, again, Tony, it's not just going to be in Afghanistan. It's in training camps in Syria. It's possibly in some Saudi areas that even the Saudi government that has been helpful does not know about. It may be networks in Europe that we have not yet tapped fully. So this is going to be a protracted effort. We got to be patient. We got to be accurate in our military strike as opposed to just emotional and speedy and let's get it done. So this is not going to be easy, but I think that we have gotten a very good degree of international cooperation lately. I am pleased with that Pakistani initial response, but again, in the past, they've said one thing and done the other and not always have delivered.
So trust but verify. If they do not follow through, does the United States have any leverage, or what kind of military or other kind of leverage might we have so that the cooperation becomes real?
Well, we have sanctioned that country with military, economic, trade sanctions. We could restore that. We should use mainly the carrot, I would think. We've already delivered the stick many times. We can basically enhance our relationship, recognize that India, too, which is very cooperative and which is not negatively involved at all, is a huge country that we have to balance our interests too. So we could use a combination of sticks and carrots, but I think Pakistan should recognize that their territory, if there are some terrorist links there from Osama bin Laden, would be vulnerable too, so it's in their interest to cooperate. This is a real watershed time for Pakistan where they can step up to the plate and be with us, or continue to be basically a country in isolation that is having more economic problems, that is right now threatened by India. So this is a crucial moment for this potentially powerful and potentially decisive country in this fight against Osama bin Laden for us.
All right, former Ambassador Bill Richardson, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tony.
Now we're going to go to Molly Falconer up in New York. There have been a series of events up in the city today.